So thank you so much for taking time this morning to join me and go over some of the ways in which we can define our month-end processes in Acumatica. And I'm going to start by saying that some of you may have been doing this for a long time and you may not get much out of this. Some of you may have been using QuickBooks for a long time and suddenly you're using Acumatica and this is going to be brand new to you. We have some big customers, we have some very small customers. So I'm going to start with the basics since there's some people here that are very new to the ERP world. So having said that, we're going to talk about defining your closing schedule, your procedures, discussing some of the subsidiaries of the general ledger and other related modules and how we use all of that to create for each one of your companies your own specific closing procedures and schedule. So where do we start? We start by saying that with the printing the trial balance, what we're going to do for each one of your organizations is look at those critical asset and liability accounts that you can reconcile and start with that. So for example, if you have bank loans, go look at the bank loan on your on the bank website, make sure the balance that you have on your trial balance matches that. So very basic concepts. If you have assets and depreciation, well, we'll go through the fixed asset module, but you know, the things that you can very easily check off and say, yep, those balances are correct. So what we're trying to do here is create a plan that we execute at the end of every month that allows us in some way to, I'm going to call it audit the balances mostly on your balance sheet. In most cases, if your balance sheet is correct, your P&L is probably correct. Now, there is some cases in which we're going to try to make sure that our some of the important accounts in our P&L are have the correct numbers, but most of the time we're going to focus on the balance sheet numbers, and we're going to focus on those modules that have schedules inside of the ERP system. So how do we create a closing procedure? Start with a schedule. So the end of the month comes along. How many days should it take your specific organization to close your books? If you decide that that is 5 days, then it needs to be done within those 5 days. If it's 10 days, depending on the size of your company, it may take a shorter or a longer time. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a checklist with detailed items that need to be executed at the end of every month. And number 3, we're going to use reconciliations to reconcile all of our cash accounts, our credit cards, the things that need to be reconciled. So inside of Acumatica, we're going to close all the sub-modules first. That is AR, AP, inventory. Depending on your business, you may be a project-based business, or you may be a manufacturing business or a distribution business. So based on that, we're going to look at those modules that are specific to your business and then create a list of things that we need to execute at the end of every month. Then if you have certain journal entries that you enter every month or allocations that you execute every month in the general ledger, that's going to come next. And then at the end of the year, it really becomes a non-event because all you're doing is closing December, which is just another month. The beauty of Acumatica versus other ERPs out there is that because all of the transactions are date-based, Then when you go from that December 31st to January 1st, everything is going to work exactly the same. There's other ERP systems out there where if you don't close the year, then you don't have beginning balances, for example, on your balance sheet. Acumatica is not like that. And it's just a beautiful thing because it really eliminates a lot of the stress of the year end. So most of our customers have an inventory-based business, so distributors, manufacturers. I do have some customers that are project-based, but just for today's example, I'm going to start with inventory. I like to start with inventory because it's one of the items that seem to go out of balance the fastest, and it really is not that difficult to keep it as close to reality as possible. So first of all, we need to release open transactions. Any transactions that have not been released need to be released. Then let's talk about cycle counts. I know that a lot of you do not do cycle counts, and there's a lot of companies that still close their business at the end of the year for 2 or 3 days just to count inventory. Well, if we only do that once a year, then it becomes a monumental task at the end of the year. What cycle counts allows you to do is to decide on specific groupings of inventory items that you count on a regular basis. It could be based on inventory class. It could be based on fast and slow moving items. I mean, there's lots of different ways. I am not an expert at inventory counts, but I know that a lot of our people here can help you with that. So if that's an area that you want to focus on, let's have one of our consultants help you with your cycle counts. The concept of the cycle count is that you're counting every week a small group of items. So it's not a monumental task, but it keeps your inventory in sync and up to date. And instead of having these huge quantities of variances at the end of the year, you may have small variances throughout the month that are not as consequential as when you do the yearly counts. The other thing is, let's reconcile the inventory balance. And there's a report that I'm going to point you to that gives you the amounts that were posted to a particular GL account on a particular period. Your general ledger needs to balance to that number. So we'll take a look at that. And then finally, we're going to close the financial periods. The modules that have the ability to close the financial periods are inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable, fixed assets, commissions, the cash. I hope I'm not missing anything. We'll take a look in a minute. Okay, so if I look at my inventory, as you can see, we have the physical counts, and under processes at the bottom, we have closed financial periods. So we talked a little bit about physical counts. This is the report that I was going to point you to, inventory valuation. And if I go back to my prior screen, you will see that under reports, we have the inventory valuation. I like this report because it gives me the GL account and how much was posted to that specific GL account, second account, and then at the bottom, it gives me a total. This total down here needs to balance to my general ledger total in inventory, whether it's one account or multiple accounts. If it's, in this case, multiple accounts, then I will reconcile each one of those accounts. This depends on how you're handling your inventory. Okay, so next, we're going to talk about accounts receivable. A lot of customers have recurring transactions. They have monthly recurring billings. Those need to be generated at the end of every month or at the beginning of the month, depending on what your specific processes are. We want to apply payments and credit memos. Sometimes we take prepayments, and for some reason, something gets changed and those prepayments stay open. Have a screen where you can look at all your prepayments and see if there's anything that you need to close or that you need to apply. For bigger companies, you may have specific people that is their job. So for a small company, you may have one person that creates this list and this schedule and does all these tasks. For a bigger company, we may have multiple people that each one of them is performing a different task. Generate overdue charges. If you're using dunning letters, then let's go ahead and prepare that. Prepare statements. If you're using the deferred revenue in Acumatica, then let's go ahead and run your deferred schedules. Run commissions if you're using commissions in Acumatica and close that. And then close account receivable. So this is just an example. I mean, this is a list of things, but it needs to be specific to your business. So I cannot give you a list that applies to everybody because every business is different. Again, this is just the receivables menu. And if you look at this in some ways, this is kind of giving you a list of everything that you could possibly do inside of Acumatica before you close the year or the month, I'm sorry, apologize. Here's where we close the financial period. And this is what it looks like. If I go to receivables, when I go to that closed financial period, I have the opportunity to see if I have any unreleased documents. And if I don't, then I check which month I want to close, and then I process. Make sure you don't process all because that would close every period. Do we have any questions so far? Doesn't seem like it. Okay, I'm going to keep going.
None in the chat.
Thanks, Rick. Accounts payable. Again, do we have payables that we generate transactions every month? Probably at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month. Did we run them? Did we not run them? Review your AP. Open documents. Release everything that hasn't been released. Again, prepayments. Defer revenue. If you're running defer revenue, when to use defer revenue? If you have for example, deposits that you make. Okay, I'm gonna make something up. You bought something that if you pay for the entire year once, you get a discount, and it's a big expense. Then if you want to use the defer revenue to expense every month the portion, that's a good use of deferred revenue and payables. And if you're doing that, make sure you run that. Again, reconcile the GL to the trial balance. If you're using multi-currency, then you need to revalue your multi-currency accounts, your vendor accounts. And then you close the AP in the, again, it looks exactly the same as AR. In this case, AP is open from April on. This is 2013, so it's just a demo site. And I will go into the system in a little bit and go through some of this. Cash management. So cash management is an interesting one. And for those of you that have smaller businesses, what I like to do is I like to go in and reconcile the few transactions that come in every day. Now, if you have a bigger business, then that may be a big task. And in that case, you may want to wait until the end of the month. If you have a lot of transactions, then you may want to use the import of bank statements or bank transactions so that it facilitates the reconciliation of your cash accounts as well as your credit card accounts. With the advanced expense management now, if you were in the webinar last time, you know now that you can match those transactions directly in the system. If you're doing multi-currencies, then you have to manage the gains and the losses and the multi-currency translations and so on. And at the end, you're going to close the cash management financial period, and it works exactly the same as AR and AP. And again, what I like to do, this is a cash account reconciliation. I like to reconcile items on a daily basis. So in this case, 10/22/2020, this is the statement balance from my bank. And what I want to do is I want to reconcile until this number becomes 0. Then I save it and I wait until the next day to do the same thing. If you do it a day at a time, then it's not that monumental task, it's a smaller task. And maybe somebody specifically at your business can do this on a daily basis. Fixed assets. One of the things that we see on fixed assets is that people forget to convert the fixed assets to an asset. So if you're using the module, you know that you can actually issue a PO for a fixed asset or have an AP voucher that purchase a fixed asset, and then that asset sits in the fixed asset module until you convert it to a fixed asset. So make sure you do those. Make sure that you release all transactions and you calculate depreciation. And then you reconciled your fixed asset balances to the GL and you close the period. Same thing as with everything else. Project accounting. So for those of you that run businesses that are project by project, then project accounting does not have any specific closing processes. And it all depends on your business and how are you using project accounting. In businesses like ours, for example, if we have any milestone type of project where you say, okay, you're going to build 25% at the beginning, and then at certain milestone, I'm going to bill another 25% and another whatever, then those are the things that I need to look at the end of the month and make sure that we have build those projects that need to be billed. Run allocations, percent completion. If you have projects that are huge and they go for a very long time, then you're probably accumulating work in process, and you want to do that on a regular basis so that your books reflect the actual activities of the business. There's so many different scenarios. It all depends on your particular business. Taxes, again, if a lot of you guys are using Avalara or some other kind of tax reporting tool, go in, make sure that the balances at Avalara match your general ledger. Go ahead and reconcile that tax report and tax details and make sure that everything is matching before you close the month. When you're done with all this, then we get to the general ledger. And when it comes to the general ledger, some of you are running allocations where you take certain accounts and then at the end of every month, you allocate it to different departments or different branches, whatever it is. Go ahead and run those, any recurring entries. Make sure, obviously, that you've reconciled all the subsidiary modules. Update budgets and statistical ledgers if they need to be updated. And then you close the general ledger period. In most cases, once you have closed, the system will prevent people from entering transactions. Once you close each one of these submodules, the system will prevent you from entering transactions in each one of those modules. But there is a way for super users or admins to be able to open the period again so that you can make exceptions. You're probably familiar with this. This is the master financial calendar where I tell the system to open or close any periods. As you can see, as I close in AP and AR and inventory and fixed assets and so on, it closed them here. And I will show you that in a minute. So just to recap, I'm going to ask each one of you to create a schedule for your closing procedures, then a checklist of all the things that you need to do for your particular business. Discuss the subsidiary modules. We discussed that and how they get closed, and then any other related modules that are of importance to your specific business and to your processes, and go ahead and those need to be closed. Just at the end of the year, the only thing that should be different is 1099s and W-2s. And I will go in a minute and talk about the 1099s NEC. A lot of you I've talked to or email with somebody in your organization about these 1099 NEC forms. Unfortunately, the change came in late, and you know, it's a last minute thing, and I apologize for that, but we have different options to handle these 1099s, and I have discussed with most of you these different options. And oh, this is just where the 1099s are under reporting. If you expand your menu, you will see a lot of options here for the 1099. There's your 1099 miscellaneous form, the 1099 NEC form, and you can create the e-file. And at this point, if you guys have any questions, I will take questions, or I'm going to go ahead and open Acumatica. And as I go through some of this, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I like, but I think that closing procedures are going to be very personal or very unique, not personal, unique to each organization. So just because this is the way I do it doesn't mean that that's the way exactly that you have to do it. So I'm going to bring in Acumatica. Rick, are you seeing Acumatica?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start with the master financial calendar. I am sure that you guys are familiar with this. So let's go back to 2020. Well, actually, we may need to go back to 2013 because this is where this calendar is. From here, I can open, close, lock. So closing and locking. You can lock it before you close it. So we talked about starting with inventory. So I'm going to start over there. And as I go through this, if you have any questions, please, please, please don't hesitate to ask. This is the report that I was suggesting that you can use to reconcile your GL with your inventory. You want to make sure that the value that you have sitting in the inventory module is equivalent to the value that you have sitting on your general ledger. So in this case, for example, in account 12100, we have 436,344.07. So I should have opened a trial balance in another tab. And well, so let's see, what account was it? 12,100. And so this account obviously has more than just that. It has 8,735 something. So let's see what else is there. Maybe it's because this is the sub account 000. And yep, that is correct. We have other sub accounts that have. So I need to look at the last page, and sure enough, my inventory balance is the same. So any questions on that?
There is a question.
Okay.
Historical inventory valuation provide period sensitive balances, inventory valuation balance as of the date you run the report.
It gives me the option of setup, starting and ending period. So if we're doing this on a monthly basis and you're consistent doing that, then this would definitely give you the net change for that particular period. Once we are done with all that, and again, like I said, I'm not an expert at cycle counts, but very much a proponent of those. Then we can go ahead and close the inventory module. I'm going to move to receivables. Same thing. There is a screen that I really, really like, which is the customer summary. And the customer summary gives me the total AR as of right now, but as you can see, I can change this so that is December of 2020. This should match my December AR balance. This particular database has 13 periods, which allows us to have a specific period, which is usually the 31st of December, just for adjusting entries for the year end. A lot of companies do that. It's totally up to you. But this is one of those screens that I personally use a lot. I am not an accountant, and so what I do with this is, in PC Bennett, we don't have any of these currency we don't deal with multi-currency. So what I do is I basically take all that out, and we don't do any retainage. So you can take those things out and then, you know, make it a much simpler screen. There's still a lot of stuff here. And what I like to do is I like to put the ending balance. I just sorted this thing and I didn't mean to. I like to put the ending balance at the beginning so that, and again, this is because I'm not an accountant, because I know that a lot of you who are accountants would never agree with this, but I'm just saying this is what I like to do so that I can see the ending balance next to the customer. And I can even move this if I want to somewhere else. And now the other thing we can do is we can create side panels over here so that when you have a question about this particular customer, now you can see the side panel that tells you how many transactions or whatever it is that you want to see on the side panel. That's something that I would recommend. Another thing that I would recommend, and little trick here, is if you want to see what open credit memos you have, what open prepayments, anything open, then what I do here is I'm going to create a series of filters that just show me those things that I want to see. So in this case, we're seeing all the payments and they're all closed and all that. So I can come here and say, okay, what I want to see is, let's see. it's the type equals, say, credit memo, and and it's still open, and the status is equal to open. And then I'm going to save this as open credit memos. So what that does is that now I have very quickly, I can see all my open credit memos. I can do the same thing for prepayments or open payments, whatever it is that you guys want to see, we can create as many of these. And not only that, but what I can do is I can default. I can say, for example, okay, I want this to be my default. So when I open this particular, let's just go out of there, go out of here. So when I open my payments and adjustments, this is where it opens. So I just did it here with the AR module, but this concept of creating different views, you can do anywhere in the system. And it just really highlights those records that you want to see very quickly without having to go search through a bunch of transactions for the ones that you actually want to see. Any questions on this? Nope. Okay. So we're in receivables. What else? Recurring transactions, we talked about that. So processing your recurring transactions, printing the invoices. Every once in a while, customers send you a check and they skip the 20 cents, the 50 cents, $1.50, whatever. We can write off those balances and small credits. I would recommend that. Some people like to do these auto payments. I particularly don't, but again, that's a matter of your particular choice. Let me see. Well, you can see the menus. If you guys have questions, you want to learn more about any of these items, please, please, please give us a call. Let us know that, what did I do? Let us know that you would like to learn more about something, whatever it is specifically. So we closed our inventory, we closed the receivables, and again, it's the same thing. I just say, okay, I want to close April of 2013, and I process. I take a look and make sure that there's no unreleased documents. This will show me that. If there is, they'll be there. They're none. Okay, so now I can just go ahead and close that. And now I'm done. I've closed April, and now it shows me only May through the end of the year of 2013. Obviously, this is really old sample data, but this is the way you would do it. So why is this important? When you give a financial statement to a bank, you don't want that financial statement to change after you've given it to a bank. When you know that at the end of the month, I made $200,000 for the month as net profit, you don't want to come 2 months later and realize that, oh my God, I lost money instead because there were a lot of transactions that were not entered on time. So it's creating those processes that give you a really good look into your business, that guarantees the accuracy of your books, and that helps you know what steps to take in order to guarantee that accuracy. Well, let's take a look at our 1099s. And I have had conversations with, like I said, with somebody in each one of our customers' companies. So if you haven't heard from me, somebody in your company has, or from somebody else in my team, not just me. In 2020, the IRS made some changes and created a new form called the NEC, non-employee compensation form. And then Acumatica had to create a build to accommodate this new form. And there is builds, and let me see, there's new builds for 2018 R2. It should be build number 21. For 2019 R1, it should be build 20. 2019 R2 should be build 13. 2020 R1, build number 9. And all of 2020 R2 versions have the 1099 NEC. Now, when we install an update to your system, there's a certain risk that we take that some of you would rather not take. So there's other options. A lot of you are in the process of testing in a sandbox to move to 2020. If that is the case, then let's refresh the data in your sandbox and run the 1099s out of the sandbox. It doesn't matter. 1099s is a report. As long as the data is correct, then it doesn't matter where you run them from. That's probably the easiest thing to do with the least amount of risk. Refreshing the database for you, those of you that are on SaaS has a cost because Acumatica charges, I believe, $400 for the backup and restore into your sandbox. So what I would do is I would take a look and see how many 1099s I have on my production database and how many do I have on my sandbox, and maybe enter the transactions, enter a transaction to make up the difference for each vendor so that the totals are correct. All you need is to make sure that your 1099 has the right numbers. So that's one option. Some of our customers are using outside systems, some free programs where you can, if you have a handful of 1099s, run them somewhere else if you don't have a sandbox. So if you want to discuss alternatives and options, give me a call or give Rick a call or Paul or somebody, and we can discuss those options. So the bottom line is that there is a new form. The definition per the IRS is kind of could be lost in translation with me, but it's not 100% clear. So it says that you must report payments as a non-employee compensation if all of the following conditions apply. You made a payment to an individual who is not your employee. You made a payment that was for services in the course of your trade or business. You made a payment to an individual, a partnership, an estate, or a corporation. And payments to the payee were at least $600. So it seems to me that anybody who had line 7 in the miscellaneous form now needs to be reported on the next form. We also can create the digital file or the e-file that you can upload to the IRS. That's very easy for most people to do so that you don't have to be printing a bunch of red forms and then mailing them to the IRS. So at this time, I'm just going to open for questions, comments, anything else that that you guys would be interested in asking, hearing. Let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any questions at this time. And I can go through W-2s too, if you want to. Well, so it seems like either I bored you to pieces or you have no questions, in which case I really, really appreciate your attention today and your participation. There's chat.
There's one question or comments. W-2s would be great.
Okay. So I can't do it here. So this is the new payroll that a lot of you guys have been waiting for. Since I have some people here that are interested in payroll, I'm waiting for a fix that apparently should come in on Friday. If, and this is my criteria, if I can move PC Bennett to the new payroll and feel comfortable, I will start moving you guys to the new payroll. For the time being, let's see about this update that's coming in on Friday. We'll test it. If we move PC Bennett, then pretty soon we'll start moving you guys. So W-2s, and this is going to be interesting because I don't have your version of payroll. I shouldn't have offered that. I don't have your version of payroll other than here. So with our payroll, the good thing is with the old payroll, and we'll talk about the new payroll in a minute, with the old payroll, you have the W-2 forms here. And from here, we can print them two ways. One is in blank paper, which means that the system will actually create the W-2 form and print it on your laser printer. This is our system, so I cannot print them and show you, but you basically enter the year that you're printing for, and I print them. We can print them on blank paper and give them to our employees, and then we can create an e-file. So you don't have to buy the forms if you don't want to, if you want to do it this way. In the new system, is anybody running the new system? Not yet. So if you choose to run the forms that you can buy at Office Depot, then you want to choose the pre-printed form, and then you go ahead and pick the year and print the report. It's 2 W-2s per form. And if you want to give it a try and give me a call and ask questions, myself or Chris, I'm more than happy to answer your questions about printing W-2s. Now, coming on the new payroll, which is a little bit of exciting, is that Acumatica has cut a deal with a company by the name of Atrix. And for those of you coming from Mass 90 or Mass or any of the Mass systems, you're familiar with Atrix. So I'm just going to go to the federal forms. If I go to print my, say, my 941, and I'm going to enter the year, and let's just say Q1, run report, then, so I need to set up an account with Atrix, and I have two options. One is Atrix gives me the report with the information that I need to file those taxes, or if I choose to, I can pay them to file the taxes for me. So that is a new option that you get with the new payroll that we didn't have before. For those of you that have a lot of states, it's probably worth having a product like Atrix file your state reports for you. So that's coming up. Let's see. Will you be sharing a PDF of the slides from the presentation? I can certainly do that. I will send the slides from the presentation. Any other questions? You're welcome. So I wish all the questions were in the same place. There's two places for questions. Yeah, anything else? Anything else I can show you that may help in any way? So last night, as I was preparing for this presentation, I realized that my inventory account is off balance, and I'm going to show you a trick. It's not a trick, it's a lot of you may know already, but how I found the issue. So what I did is I went to accounts by period, and well, in this one is 12/100s for inventory, and I saw that, and it's like, what? We don't carry inventory. I mean, I use the inventory system like in and out. When you guys have a renewal, we in essence purchase it from Acumatica and then sell it, but it should always be zero, and it wasn't zero. It's like, how in the world did that happen? So I went to that particular period. This probably has less transactions. And what I did to figure out what was going on, because there was lots and lots of transactions. So let's see. Oh, this is 12/20/20. Then what I did is I said, okay, give me all the transactions that did not come in from the inventory module. And there it was. It was an AP transaction that was posted to that account, I'm sure by mistake. So these are little things that we can do, that we can help you to find issues. If you have questions, if you want to run through your processes, I'm happy to sit down with you and look at what you're doing and maybe give you suggestions, if that helps. If you know more than me, which is very possible, then that's awesome. Okay. So having said that, I think we're done, unless there's anything else. Thank you very much, and we'll have another webinar next month with one of the topics that you guys selected in the last webinar. What we're going to do is we have now cataloged which ones were the most popular, and we're going to go down the list from the most popular to the least popular. So next month, we'll do the second most popular. This one was number 1. And I will see you then. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.